Aloha, everybody. It's twilight time here in Waihoa, and twilight marks this in between time between light and day, and the darkness is soon to arrive. And these are good moments in time when I was told that secrets and secrets are revealed through the veil, and communication between the spirit world and this world occurs very well. So I chose this time period to come out in my backyard. In fact, after I finish, I'll be showing you um, the tree that I'm under, and you folks can take a look for to see if there's any visitors with us today. Okay. Now, welcome to my Sunday Monday video. And last time I told you folks that I'd be sharing with you folks my experience with the eight spirits that used to visit with me in at any time I was admitted into the old hospital, Molokai General Hospital, located in Holehua. Now, the first time I encountered this group of spirits, uh, totaled eight of them, was shortly after I got into an accident. I was 5 years old. I was pushed out of the car and I injured my head. And after spending the time in a hospital, I started to notice some strange things happening late at night. And these strange things would be little toys that parents brought their children that was in the hospital would be falling off of the bed. Now, to describe this um, hospital room, it was a child's ward, the children's ward of Molokai General, and it was one big room, probably about 20 by 20. And inside this room, you had a bunch of beds put together, and most of the beds rested close to the walls, and some of the beds were placed in the middle of the room. But that way, there's a lot of beds, and a lot of times when epidemics came along, such as flu or stomach flu or anything weird, all of the sick children would be placed inside the same room. We'll all be there. And I guess this is part of the herd immunity program that was going on that time. Anyway, one kid got sick, we all got sick. Okay, so we were placed in this pretty large room, and there were several things inside the room. Like I remember there was a big tub that they used to fill up with ice cubes and cold water. And anytime our fevers were, really high, we'd have a ice bath. And talk about adding injury or insult to injury by being shoved inside a vat full of uh, ice cold water while you're burning hot. Okay, not a very pleasant experience. So there was that. There was bathroom and a place that you could use your bathroom. And um, so this room was right next to the room where they kept the babies. And so newborn babies would be placed just in front of the room, and there was a large window and a curtain where if we wanted to get out of bed and peek at the little new arrivals, we could. So it was all up front, close to the front portion, or the main entrance of the hospital, and that's the room that it was put in. Now, just outside of that room was a long hallway that connected with the other hospital rooms in there. And when you come out of the children's ward, you turn left and go down to the end of the hall. That's where they had the lab, where a lot of the jars that I showed in a picture, jars containing fetuses and just samples of different things that are taken out of the human body was placed in jars. So that's a um, that's a description of the place. Okay. Now, after receiving my injury when I was 5 years old and damaged my head, um, I started noticing strange things. Like I said, late at night, stuffed animals and little toys that a family would bring over for the kids that were sick and left inside the bed. They would jump out or fall out of the bed, and because I had a head injury, I had a hard time sleeping, and so I had to sleep on my side. I was always turned to either my left or my right side, and if I'm turning to my left, I could see what was happening in the main floor. And if there wasn't that many kids in there, the beds would be kind of like pushed off in the side, so there would be a large area, um, kind of like a floor in the open in the floor, and that's where the toys would end up, and they'd start moving around. And so when I started noticing them moving around on the floor, I knew something was moving it, and I couldn't figure out what was moving it. And so I laid there very silent, and um, at first it kind of like frightened me a little, so I would hide under my sheet. But eventually, after several days, I started noticing that if I close my eyes and I focus and ask the question, what's causing this to happen? Inside my mind, I could see shapes like shadows moving around in the room, and these shapes were kind of like vaporous. You could see outlines. You could see outlines, and these outlines were not humanoid at first and stuff. In fact, I was telling my wife, the outlines of these things look more like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Big head, and sometimes the eyes would be prominent, but it would be dark spots and stuff, and it was kind of spooky for a bit. And that's what I started seeing first. And so my first experience with them, I didn't want to interact with them. I didn't want anything to do with them, so I would hide. And but as soon as if realized that I could see them and notice them, they would come around. As soon as they enter the room and they see me and stuff, they come to my bedroom, my bed, and hang around and try and bug me to get my attention. And I'm over there hiding. No, I don't want. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. And sometimes, a couple times, a nurse who's passing by, they heard me saying, "Leave me alone. Leave me alone." And she'll come inside and say, "Oh, you okay?" I said, "No, these little things, look like ghosts. They're coming around and bothering me." And she kind of looks at me and say, "Okay." So at first they're kind of like kind of scary to me. But eventually, as they began to change, their appearance started to change. And I wasn't too sure if this change in their appearance had more to do with me wanting them to morph and change into something that was more pleasant, or if they're realizing that their appearance was frightening me. When I found out that these spirits were actually probably attached to the fetuses, I realized that these ghosts never lived in a human body. They didn't know how to look and appear as humans. They had to learn and look at them and realize, oh yeah, they got to learn how to shape and form, and it's my job to teach them. So I started to talk to them and or communicate with them and say, you know what, you look really scary, and you don't look like me. You don't look like the other kids. And so as soon as I started communicating that with the spirits, it began to change and to more pleasant. Now, there are 8 spirits there, and the 3 larger spirits were female. They were girls. And when they started appearing to me, they were larger spirits, and eventually they morphed into what they appeared to be more girl-like and stuff. They fully never looked human in any sense, but you could tell that they were girls. And two of them were really bossy. They tried to control the toys on the ground and tell the other kids what to do. And if I was to assign an age to them, they were probably about 10, 9, 10 years old, and a little bit older than me. And then the 5 smaller spirits were all boys. And the boys were real koloi. They're into everything. They're curious about stuff. Some of them began to take the take the dolls apart, remove the head, remove the legs, and just to look at them. And um, I told them not to do that because that wasn't their toys. So I had to scold them and teach them how proper behavior. And so they're pretty interesting. These characters. The 3 girls that were bossy and stuff. They would dominate my time. They would try and be next to my bed, and they try and converse with me. And I had to learn how to listen so that I could hear. Initially, I just see their mouth moving and nothing was coming out. I had to learn how to tune my ear in so that I could hear what they were saying. So for a short time, we were communicating with hand gestures like, "This is for you. Want something to eat, or you want something to drink? Do you hear me? Do you understand what I'm saying?" Things like that. We just kind of like working things out to try and communicate. But eventually, I learned how to adjust my hearing so that I could hear them and listen to them, and we could communicate. They could hear my thoughts. They could hear my speaking voice. So a lot of times, if I just was saying, go away, I'm tired, they picked that up, and um, they're pretty decent at times, most of the time. The so the 3 girls. Um, the one thing the 3 girls kept on asking me, they were real jealous that I had a name and I had a family. Okay, and they knew my name, they knew who my family was, and because they, would come in all the time, and they constantly asked me if I could think of a name for them. And I mentioned this to my dad, and my dad says, no, don't give them name because you give them name, you claim them as yours, and they go follow you home. So I learned that later on. I never started calling them by names, but inside me, I had kind of like nicknames for them. For example, the one of the boy spirits was really small. If there was if there's something like a Menihune, he would be it. Okay, but he was really small, very shy. He was walking around sucking thumb, and very shy and bashful. And so, for me, I just call him the Kuaina one. Kuaina. So he hardly say anything, always sitting on the side, and he liked to be carried. So one of the larger girl spirits would be the ones to carry him around and kind of like put him on the back and piggyback. And sometimes when this um, Kuaina spirit used to come to my bed and I sit up, he'd jump on a bed and try and climb up on my back, and I have to tell him, get off. I'm not going to carry you that way. So I learned not only as a 5 year old, but every time I went back, I was in this, I was in and out of the hospital, um, almost my entire childhood, and every time I went in there, these spirits would be in there waiting for me. Kuaina eventually, transformed into a larger kid, and the older I got, these spirits kind of like grew alongside me. They grew too. So I guess their appearance had a lot to do with me and my expectations on what the spirit should look like. There are three other boys that were really troublemakers and stuff, and I had to get on the case several times. These were really, really kolohe. They'd mess with things, they'd spill water, they would knock things down. One of them was really angry, and um, the reason why he was angry, I figured out, is he was almost born before he was aborted. He's almost made it to breathe life, and it was taken away from him. So he was angry. He was angry at me. He was angry at the nurses. One commenting all eight of the spirits had is that there was this one nurse inside there that nobody liked. They hated her, and when she had the night shift, they would pull tricks like they pour water on the ground and hope she slip, and hurt herself, or they'd hide they'd mess around with the doctor's orders, the clipboards at the base of our beds. They gather them up, they put them all up and put them inside uh, the ice bath. So things like that, crazy stuff. Also take the thermometers and go hide them. In the medication cabinet. Sometimes they mess with the lock, and where they couldn't open the lock and struggle until the right nurse come in, and she just not even using a key, she just pulls them open. And they had a favorite nurse there too, so anything that she did was okay. And so those are some of the experiences that I got from these little spirits. And the angry one is the one that kind of like bothered me the most and frightened me the most when I was there, because his anger, you could feel it, and it wasn't a very pleasant thing. And the two other ones that always accompany him, they were just like his guardians. Like if you're getting into trouble or pushing it too much, they remind him, kind of like, no, bro, just calm down, okay? So those were the four, and the fifth boy reminded me of a very, very creative individual. I think if he had survived, he would have been a great artist, because he used to grab different things, like take out wads of paper from the trash can, or if I toss him a crayon and stuff, he'd take the crayon and he actually start drawing. Now, some of these pictures that he created were very beautiful, and he would give them to me, and sometimes I keep them under my pillow. And when I leave, I get all of these different sketches and drawings under my pillow. And for the longest time, my parents thought, "Wow, David John is a good artist." And I tried to tell them, "No, it's not me. It's a ghost that is drawing that." But they thought it was me, so they started making sure that I had paper and crayons and stuff, and I didn't mind. I like drawing too, so um, it was an indication that this little one would have been a great artist had he survived. So all of these eight little spirits that I encountered had personalities. I got to know them, since I was 5 years old, and the last time I recall seeing them, was about 11 or 12, and I was based in a hospital. And shortly after my last stay at that hospital, when I was about 11 or 12, they opened up the new hospital down in Kaunakakai, and they took a lot of the things from from the Holehua hospital down to Kaunakakai. But after moving the hospital, and I went in there a couple times, once when I was 17 years old for rheumatic fever, and I spent a long time in that hospital. And while I was in the hospital, I was waiting for them to appear. They never appeared. So these spirits were unique to the Holehua Hospital, and when everything was changed over to Kanakai Hospital, these little spirits disappeared. They were no longer part of the hospital memory in this new place. Okay, so these are the eight spirits that I got to know really well. Um, I feel bad that at that time I didn't know what I could do for them. I didn't know how to help them make the transition. It wasn't even in my thoughts that they needed help in that. So um, I'm not sure if the spirits are still in the same place right now. The last time I visited Molokai, I took a look at the place, and there's a home built near the hospital where it was, and it's somebody's homestead. Okay, so um, that's my experience with the little spirits, and thank you. It's kind of a lengthy one, but I wanted to make sure that you folks had a better idea of the spirits that I was dealing with, and how initially I was afraid of them, but over time I had to learn. I learned how to accept them as being part, of the place, and got to recognize and work with them and be with them as individuals. Okay, so this is Dave Wallace under my lychee tree, and take a look at the lychee tree. See if you see any visitors with us. This is looking west. See if we get any visitors with us. Okay. So you folks have a good week, and take care of yourselves, and God bless. Aloha.